Hey, what's up guys? It's Rick with the Digital Divide. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Steam Deck from Valve. Now, I've got mine pre-ordered, and I pre-ordered the 64GB model. In my opinion, this is without a doubt the best model of this console to get, and I'm going to go over the reasons for that in this video. So if we jump over to the Steam website, you can see that they've got the different models listed here. They've got the $399 model, which is the one that I got, the $529 model, and then the $649 model. Now the difference between these three is pretty trivial. Like the premium one comes with like an anti-glare screen protector, but the rest of it is like an exclusive virtual keyboard theme and stuff like that doesn't really matter. The most important things that people care about is the built-in storage. So you get 64 gigs, 256 gigs, or 512 gigs built into the system, but that doesn't matter at all. Now the 64 gig does only have eMMC storage versus the much faster NVMe SSD storage, but again, that doesn't matter at all if you're only using the drive to boot the OS on. So if you look at the difference between the speeds of an eMMC drive versus an NVMe, it's pretty drastic, but again, this is the same kind of storage that a Nintendo Switch uses. It's more than capable of running games or loading the operating system. It can effectively deliver transfer speeds up to about 400 megabits per second. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that even though the 64 gig version only comes with an eMMC drive, the motherboard for that model still has the NVMe slot. It is just empty. It doesn't have an SSD in there, but it's still there, so you can just add your own. So we're going to go over options when you buy the 64 gig version of this console. Option number one is that you just throw a micro SD card in there to install all of your games, and you just use the built-in eMMC drive as a boot disk for the operating system. That way you have that just for the OS, and you can use SSD for the games. And if you're thinking to yourself a micro SD card is not fast enough to load or install games on, you're completely wrong.
They claimed at the hands-on that both the internal SSD and the micro SD card would manage similar load times, and I didn't believe them. But so far it appears as though I was wrong.
So as you can see here, courtesy of Linus Tech Tips, they did a side-by-side comparison of SSD load times versus a micro SD card, and the difference is very minimal. PC Gamer actually did their own comparison where they found that the micro SD card was actually faster than the internal SSD. So if we hop on Amazon and just look for a 512 gigabyte micro SD card, I'll go ahead and we're going to search here. We're going to filter this for Prime, and then additionally I'm going to filter this for the highest rated. And I'm going to skip the sponsored stuff here. Okay, so here's the first one. It's a Samsung 512 gig SSD. It's only $75. $75 for 512 gigs of storage. So if you get this, you have that plus the 64 gig to use for the OS. Now, if we jump back over to the Steam page, you can see they're charging $649 for 512 gigs of storage. So if you just buy a micro SD card, that saves you $250, and then you still have that extra 64 gigs of built-in memory. Option number two, just install your own NVMe SSD, because remember, the Steam Deck still has that empty slot on the board if you buy the 64 gig version. Valve even released their own video in which they show you exactly how to replace not only the thumbsticks for this console, but also to add or replace an NVMe SSD, which is ridiculously simple if you have any experience with computers. Now again, if we hop over to Amazon and look up SSDs for this, the first one I found here, 256 gig, it's only $45, which is ridiculously cheap to do, and you can install it yourself in like 10 minutes. Again, if we jump back over to the Steam page, they're charging $529 for that much storage. So not only are you saving $130 by buying your own NVMe SSD, but again, you still have that 64 gigs of built-in eMMC storage. So you get more storage and you're saving $130. Option number 3 is you just do both. Install your own NVMe SSD and a micro SD card, and use the internal eMMC storage as a boot drive for the operating system. So you have 3 different options for storage, and the 64GB version of the Steam Deck is the only version of this console where you get this option, where you have the speed of an NVMe drive plus the micro SD card plus the built-in storage. Now, keep in mind though, if you're going to upgrade the SSD, just do remember that you need a 2230 model SSD. Any other model is too big to fit inside of the unit, so it has to be that size. Now, the Steam Deck is a really impressive piece of hardware. If you compare it to any other handheld, it is drastically faster. It uses the same AMD Zen 2 architecture as the most recent consoles. It's got 16 gigs of RAM, it utilizes SSDs, but keep in mind, this is really meant to be a handheld experience. This console excels its 720p resolution thereabouts. It falls somewhere between a PlayStation 4 Pro and a PlayStation in terms of its power and capabilities when it comes to handheld mode, which is still incredibly impressive for a handheld. Also, if you have a large Steam library, all of those games are just automatically available to you on the go. You don't have to rebuy anything. Your entire library is there for you on day one. And this thing can run AAA games. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a good example. It runs it flawlessly and at high settings. This is running at higher settings than the PS4 Pro runs it at. So those are my thoughts today, guys. I just wanted to let you know that if you're looking to get this thing, you don't have to go with the more expensive options. There are better ways to save money and still get the same experience. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below.